What if I told you that most women are doing the exact opposite of what makes a man chase, and it's not your fault? You've been fed a version of love that says give more, be available, prove your worth. But here's the shocking truth. The more you do, the less he feels the need to chase you. It's not about playing games. It's about understanding the real emotional blueprint inside a man's mind. What makes him crave, pursue, and obsess over a woman long after she leaves the room. And guess what? That blueprint has nothing to do with your looks, your status, or how much you give to him. It has everything to do with how you make him feel about himself when he's around you. Men don't fall for the woman who's always available. They fall for the one who triggers a deep sense of challenge, curiosity, and admiration. The kind of woman who feels like a mystery wrapped in warmth, not a job application waiting for approval. In this video, I'm going to break down something most women never hear, not from friends, not from therapists, and definitely not from society. It's a psychological shift that quietly makes 95.7% of men lean in closer without you ever having to chase, beg, or prove your worth. This isn't about manipulation. It's about energy, presence, power. And once you understand it, you won't just be unforgettable. You'll become the kind of woman a man can't stop thinking about. Let's pull back the curtain, because after today, you'll never look at the chase the same way again. If you've ever Googled how to make him want you, you've probably come across an ocean of advice, most of it telling you to do more. Be more available. Text him first to show confidence. Mirror his energy. Always keep the conversation going. Play a little hard to get, but not too hard. And somewhere between all that advice, you're left feeling confused, overthinking everything, and wondering why he's still pulling away. Here's the problem. Most advice about chasing men is built on an outdated belief that attraction is created through effort. But attraction isn't logical. It's emotional, and emotion doesn't respond to strategy. It responds to energy. The reason most advice fails is because it tells women to act from a place of fear. Fear of losing him. Fear of being forgotten. Fear of not being chosen. And when you operate from fear, even subtly, it changes your entire vibe. You could say all the right things, look amazing, and still make him feel like he has the upper hand. Why? Because he can sense your emotional position. He can feel when you're trying to win him rather than letting him earn you. Most advice focuses on external actions. What to say, when to text, how to flirt. But none of that matters if your inner world is screaming, please validate me. Men aren't drawn to effort. They're drawn to essence. That's why the women who do less often get more. They're not following scripts. They're embodied. They're not chasing. They're choosing. And that difference, it's everything. Here's another truth. Men are biologically wired to value what they must pursue. It activates a part of their psychology rooted in achievement and desire. When something or someone is handed to them too easily, they may like it, but they don't value it. They don't fight for it. And as much as society tries to tell us men and women are exactly the same in relationships, the truth is that men fall through pursuit, not through pressure, not through perfection, through the process of earning access to a woman who knows her value. That's why so many women get stuck in the cycle of doing everything right and still feeling unwanted. Because it's not about how much you're giving, it's about what energy you're giving it from. If it's coming from fear, pressure, or insecurity, he senses that. He may not consciously understand it, but he feels the lack of polarity. He feels the imbalance. And that's what causes him to pull away. Not because you weren't enough, but because you weren't in your power. Real attraction starts when you stop thinking about how to keep him and start asking how you're keeping yourself. The truth is, most advice fails because it tries to change your behavior without changing your beliefs. And as long as you believe you need to chase love, earn it, or prove yourself worthy of it, you'll always feel like you're running uphill. But the moment you flip the script, when you start seeing yourself as the prize, the experience, the energy worth chasing, everything shifts. It's not about playing hard to get, it's about being hard to forget. And that starts when your value no longer depends on how much attention he gives you. It starts when you realize the right man doesn't need convincing. He just needs to meet the version of you who already knows she's enough. So if you've been following the advice to do more, chase harder, or overextend yourself in hopes that he'll finally see you, it's time to stop. You don't need better lines, you need better alignment. And when you find it, he'll feel it even before you say a word. There's a moment when everything changes, not because you did more, but because you did different. That moment is what I call the magnetic shift. It's not about how much effort you put in to impress him. It's about shifting your energy in a way that makes him feel something around you. He can't explain a pull, a craving, a curiosity. Not because you're chasing, but because your presence alone activates something deeper in him. This shift happens when you stop trying to earn his attention and start trusting that you are naturally magnetic just by being in your power. Most women don't realize this, but the second you move from needing connection to choosing connection, your energy becomes irresistible. Why? Because men are highly sensitive to emotional cues, especially when it comes to women who are self-contained. When he senses that you are whole on your own, that your happiness doesn't hinge on his next text or his approval, it sparks something primal in him. He doesn't just want you, he wants to understand you. He starts leaning in, he starts chasing. This shift has nothing to do with silence or coldness. It's not about pulling back to punish. It's about pulling back into yourself. Instead of looking outward for validation, you begin radiating confidence, self-worth, and peace from within. That kind of energy doesn't shout, it whispers. It doesn't force, it invites. It doesn't say, pick me. It says, I'm already chosen by me. And here's the kicker. This isn't about pretending. It's not about faking confidence or acting detached. Men can feel when it's real. The magnetic shift is about returning to your center where you're emotionally grounded, connected to your desires, and not afraid to walk away from anything that doesn't honor them. That's when he feels the difference. That's when he stops taking your presence for granted. Because deep down he knows women like you don't just come around. They're rare, and what's rare is always valuable. A woman who embodies this shift doesn't rush conversations. She doesn't overshare, and she doesn't chase after clarity. She becomes the calm in his chaos. She's not the drama, she's the mystery. She listens more than she explains. She pauses before reacting. She holds her power in her posture, her tone, even her silences. And in doing so, she draws him in, without even trying. This kind of presence makes a man feel like he's earning something special. And when a man feels like he's earning your time, your attention, your affection, he values it more. Because biologically, psychologically, and emotionally, men are wired to pursue, to win, to conquer. But what they crave even more than the chase is the reward that makes the chase worth it. And that reward is a woman who is self-aware, emotionally intelligent, and unattached to outcome. The magnetic shift is subtle. It doesn't look like game playing. It looks like clarity. It feels like peace. And ironically, the more peaceful and present you become, the more chaotic his thoughts are about you. You linger in his mind, not because you made noise, but because your silence said something louder than words ever could. This is the shift that makes 95.7% of men chase. Because once he feels that energy, it's no longer about you chasing him. It's about him chasing the feeling he only gets when he's around you. Let's talk about proof. Because this isn't just theory, it's something that plays out in real life over and over again with powerful results. I've seen it in clients. I've seen it in everyday women who decided to shift their energy, and every single time, something incredible happened. He noticed. Let me start with Sarah. She had been seeing a guy for 3 months. Everything was going great until it wasn't. His texts became less frequent. The energy shifted. Instead of pulling back, she doubled down. She asked him if everything was okay, offered to help, sent supportive messages, until she realized she was the only one reaching out. She felt the urge to fix it, but instead, she chose something different. She stopped texting. She centered herself. She booked a weekend away with friends, turned her focus inward, and reconnected with who she was before the relationship. Within days, he messaged, "Hey, I've been thinking about you. I miss us." Now, let's talk about Lena. She was dating casually, but always found herself in situationships where men didn't commit. After working on her inner world, she made a choice. She would no longer overextend for men who gave her half-effort energy. On her next date, she didn't try to impress, she didn't overshare. She stayed present, asked thoughtful questions, and let him lead. After the date, she didn't follow up. She simply continued with her life. 2 days later, he messaged saying it was the best date he'd had in years, and he asked to see her again the next night. The difference? Her energy said, "I'm not here to win you. I'm here to see if you win me." Another powerful story is from Danny, who had just gotten out of a messy breakup. Her ex had moved on quickly, or so she thought. Instead of spiraling, she took a step back and committed to healing. She didn't reach out. She didn't stalk his social. She focused on her confidence, her body language, her glow. Within a few weeks, guess who slid back into her DMs? Her ex. Not just messaging to say hi, but saying, "I don't know what it is, but you've been on my mind non-stop." She didn't even have to speak a word. Her absence did the talking. That's the magnetic shift in action. And then there's Mia, who was married for 5 years, and her husband had stopped making her feel seen. She stopped nagging. She stopped trying to fix things. Instead, she started showing up differently. She went back to her passions. She stopped needing constant attention. And slowly, he began changing. He started asking about her day again, planning little surprises, touching her more often. He told her one night, "It feels like I'm falling in love with you all over again." Why? Because her energy shifted. She stopped pushing and started being. And men feel that. These are real women. No games, no manipulation, just a genuine shift in mindset, energy, and presence. That's what makes men lean in. Not because they were tricked, but because they could finally feel a woman who knew who she was. A woman who didn't need validation because she already owned her value. When you show up like that, it creates contrast. Men can feel the difference between the woman who's performing for affection and the one who embodies it. They chase the one who feels like home and mystery at the same time. And in every story, the pattern is clear. When the woman stopped chasing the man, he started chasing her. This works, not just sometimes, but consistently when it comes from a place of wholeness. And if it worked for them, it can absolutely work for you. Men aren't always the best at expressing their emotions, but that doesn't mean they don't feel deeply. In fact, some of the things they crave most are the things they're least likely to admit out loud. Not because they don't know them, but because admitting them would mean letting down their guard. It would mean being vulnerable in a world that's taught them to be stoic, strong, and impenetrable. But here's the truth. What men really want, deep down, is connection. And not just physical connection, but emotional safety. He wants to feel like he can be himself around you. Like he doesn't have to perform, fix, or impress to keep your attention. He wants to feel seen beyond his achievements, his charm, or his status. He wants to know that if he's not perfect, if he's tired, if he's struggling, if he's confused, you're not going to walk away. But he won't always say that. Because many men have been taught that needing emotional support makes them weak. So instead they test it. They pull away to see if you chase. They go quiet to see if you panic. Not to be cruel, but because they're watching your response. They want to know, can I feel safe with her? He also deeply wants to feel respected. Respect to a man is what love is to a woman. When a man feels respected, he stands taller, he loves harder, he commits. But here's the twist. Respect to him isn't about praise or flattery. It's about trusting his decisions. Another thing he won't say out loud, he wants mystery, not games, not manipulation, but genuine, effortless mystery. He wants to feel like there's still something to learn about you, even after months of being together. That means not spilling your entire soul on the first few dates. It means keeping your identity outside the relationship alive. It means giving him the thrill of discovering who you are slowly, piece by piece, rather than laying it all out like a resume. He also wants admiration, but the kind that's subtle and real, not over-the-top compliments, but moments where he sees your eyes light up when he walks in the room, when he sees that his presence matters to you, that you notice the little things. That kind of silent acknowledgement is more powerful than any words. He may never say it, but that look you give him when you're proud of him, that stays with him, that fuels him. And finally, what men deeply, secretly want is a woman who can challenge them without demeaning them. A woman who doesn't agree with everything just to keep peace, but who stands her ground with grace and softness. A woman who inspires him to rise, not because she demands it, but because her energy invites it. That's the kind of woman a man obsesses over. That's the kind of woman he tells his friends there's just something about her. So while he may never say these things out loud, you'll see it in the way he acts when he finds a woman who gives them. He'll show up differently. He'll reach out more. He'll protect, invest. Because deep down, every man is just waiting for a woman who makes him feel safe to be strong and soft at the same time. That's what he really wants. He just hasn't found the words yet. If you've ever wondered why some women have men chasing them effortlessly, the answer lies in one thing: emotional triggers. Not manipulation, not tricks, but real deep psychological triggers that flip a switch in his brain from casual interest to intense pursuit. These triggers don't work because they're sneaky. They work because they speak directly to what a man is wired to respond to emotionally, even if he doesn't consciously understand why. One of the most powerful triggers is unpredictability. Not in a chaotic, confusing way, but in a way that makes him feel like being around you is exciting. When you're consistent in your values, but unpredictable in your vibe, in your energy, in the way you respond to life, it keeps him curious. Curiosity is a drug to the masculine mind. When a man feels like he knows exactly what you're going to do, say and feel, the mystery fades. But when he senses that you're full of layers, that you're not afraid to say no or switch things up, it activates pursuit, because now he wants to figure you out, and that chase becomes addictive. Another emotional trigger is absence. Not ghosting, not playing games, but allowing room for space. Men fall in love in your absence, not your presence. When you're always available, always replying, always pouring your energy into him, he feels full too quickly. But when you pull back into your own world, your purpose, your passions, your peace, it creates a gap. That gap becomes tension, and tension fuels attraction. He starts to think about you more, wonder where you are, what you're doing if someone else has your attention, and that emotional discomfort, when used with integrity, is what makes him act. The validation withdrawal is another trigger that few women use wisely. In the beginning, women often shower a man with praise and affection. But when you start to balance that out by being warm and selective, he notices when you're not constantly affirming him, when he has to earn that smile, that compliment, that softness from you. It creates a challenge, and men are wired to chase what feels just out of reach. Not because they want to struggle, but because value increases when it's not handed out freely. Here's another: emotional mirroring. When a man expresses something vulnerable or personal, and you meet that moment with presence, not judgment, not over-analysis, but grounded understanding, it creates connection. He may not even realize why he feels closer to you, but it's because you didn't react, you reflect. That makes him feel safe to open up more. And the more a man opens up emotionally to a woman, the deeper his attachment becomes. That's when pursuit turns into investment. And one of the biggest triggers, self-prioritization. When you clearly value your time, your space, your goals, and your happiness, you become the prize. A woman who doesn't abandon herself to win a man instantly stands out from the rest. When a man sees that your life is full, your energy is sacred, and your time is intentional, he starts to crave your attention because he knows it's not given lightly, and what isn't easily available becomes desirable. All of these triggers have one thing in common. They make a man feel, not just think, not just observe, but emotionally respond. That's what activates pursuit. When his thoughts of you become feelings, when his feelings turn into desire, when his desire turns into action. It doesn't happen by trying harder. It happens by triggering the right emotions in the right way, without trying to control him. That's when he starts chasing you. Not because you asked, not because you waited, but because you became the kind of woman whose energy requires pursuit. The truth is, it's not always the loudest woman in the room or the one with the most glamorous look who captures his full attention. It's often the one who moves through the world with quiet confidence and subtle power. Irresistibility doesn't scream. It doesn't chase, it lingers. And it's in the tiniest, most unspoken moments that a man finds himself completely drawn in, sometimes without even knowing why. It starts with how you carry yourself. When you walk into a room and don't rush to shrink yourself, when your posture says, I belong here, without needing to prove it, that confidence radiates. Men notice the way you sit, the way you move your hands, the calm you carry in your energy. There's something magnetic about a woman who doesn't try to take up space, but still owns every inch of it. Another subtle behavior that captivates a man is how you respond to silence. Most people rush to fill silence with words out of nervousness, but a woman who is comfortable with quiet, that's rare. When you can sit in a moment without scrambling to make conversation, you communicate emotional maturity and presence. And he feels that. It tells him that you don't need constant stimulation to be okay, that you're grounded, unshaken, and fully in your feminine energy. Eye contact is another powerful tool. Not a stare, not something forced, but the kind of eye contact that's soft, lingering, intentional, the kind that says, I see you, without saying a word. When you lock eyes and then gently look away with a slight smile, it creates curiosity and chemistry. It invites him in while still keeping a little mystery. Even how you listen is a trigger. Most people listen to respond. But when you listen just to understand, when you nod slightly, maintain relaxed eye contact, and respond with thoughtful pauses instead of rushing into your next sentence, it builds intimacy. A man will leave a conversation with you thinking, she just gets me, and he won't even be able to explain why. He'll just know he felt seen. Then there's the art of being selectively available, not always texting back instantly, not always being free to meet, not as a game, but because you're genuinely busy with your own fulfilling life. When a man senses that your time is valuable, that you're not waiting around for him to fill your day, it makes him value every second he gets with you, subtly letting him know you have a life that brings you joy without him. That's irresistible. Laughter is another often overlooked trigger. Not forced laughter, but the kind that bubbles up naturally when you're genuinely enjoying yourself. Men are drawn to women who laugh easily, who don't take everything too seriously, who can find joy in the moment. It tells him that being around you feels good, not heavy or stressful. And the more good he feels around you, the more he wants to be around you. Finally, one of the most subtle but powerful behaviors is restraint. The ability to feel something, excitement, attraction, even desire, and not rush to express it. A woman who can sit with her feelings, who allows things to unfold slowly, creates tension. And tension is the secret source of attraction. When he's not sure if he has all of you, when you give a little and then pull back just slightly, it drives him wild. Because now you're not predictable. And in his world, where so much is routine and expected, you become the most interesting mystery of all. So no, being irresistible isn't about being perfect. It's about being intentional, being aware of the quiet power you hold in every moment. And when you master that subtle art, you won't have to chase a thing. He'll do all the chasing for you. There are few things more confusing than thinking things are going well with a guy. Great conversations, strong chemistry, meaningful connection, only for him to suddenly pull away. The truth is, most of the time, it's not because he stopped liking you. It's because of subtle mistakes that sent a signal you didn't even realize you were giving. And these mistakes, though unintentional, can make a man feel overwhelmed, misunderstood, or emotionally unsafe. If you've ever wondered what really pushes him away, this is it. One of the biggest mistakes is emotional overexposure too soon. A lot of women mistake vulnerability for dumping everything up front. Traumas, insecurities, fears, hopes, expectations. But for a man who's just getting to know you, that level of emotional depth too quickly can feel like pressure. He doesn't know where to put it, and instead of leaning in, he steps back. Vulnerability is beautiful, but only when it's layered, earned, and mutual. Give it to him piece by piece, not all at once. Another common mistake is chasing. It doesn't always look like blowing up his phone or begging for time. It can be more subtle. It's when you start adjusting your schedule around him, waiting for his texts, over-investing before he's truly earned it. The moment he senses that your energy is revolving around his availability, something in him shuts down. Men are drawn to women who value themselves deeply, and chasing sends the opposite message, even if it's wrapped in love and good intention. Trying to control the pace of the relationship is another silent deal breaker. When you're constantly asking, "Where is this going?" or trying to define the dynamic too soon, it can feel like you're forcing something he hasn't fully processed yet. Men need time to catch up emotionally, especially if they're serious about you. When you try to lead the rhythm of the connection, it makes him feel like he's being pulled rather than choosing. And a man who doesn't feel like he's choosing you will eventually choose to walk away. Then there's emotional reactivity. It's easy to get triggered when you feel insecure, when he goes quiet, when plans shift. But if every conversation turns into an emotional spiral or a confrontation, he starts to associate the relationship with stress. And men don't stay where they feel like they're constantly being tested or criticized. Even if your feelings are valid, the way you express them matters. Staying grounded, calm, and emotionally intelligent during tension is what shows him you're different. That's what builds trust, not drama. And here's a subtle one most women never realize: being too available. When you're always saying yes, when your time is too easy to get, when you're constantly free for him, it sends the message that your life revolves around him. That may seem like love, but to a man, it's a loss of mystery and independence. What pulls him in is the sense that you have a world of your own, a life full of things that light you up. When he feels like he has to work to earn time in that world, it makes him respect and value you more. Lastly, seeking constant reassurance. This one is so common, especially if you've been hurt before. But asking him to prove how he feels, to affirm the connection over and over, can become exhausting. It makes him feel like nothing he does is enough. Instead of deepening intimacy, it creates emotional distance. Confidence is quiet, security is attractive, and a woman who believes in her worth doesn't need to ask where she stands. She assumes she's already the prize. The biggest irony is that most of these mistakes come from a beautiful place, a desire to love, to connect, to be chosen. But when that desire turns into pressure, overgiving, or emotional urgency, it pushes him away. The key is to slow down, to stay rooted in your value, to let him come to you not because you're playing games, but because you trust that you don't need to chase something that's meant for you. The mistake many women make is thinking they need to do more to keep his attention, when in reality it's about doing less, but doing it with intentionality. Less chasing, less explaining, less performing, more being, more trusting, more allowing. The moment you stop trying to convince someone to choose you is the moment the right one starts choosing you without hesitation. The mistake many women make is thinking they need to do more to keep his attention, when in reality it's about doing less, but doing it with intentionality. Less chasing, less explaining, less performing, more being, more trusting, more allowing. The moment you stop trying to convince someone to choose you is the moment the right one starts choosing you without hesitation.
Your next move is to shift the energy from getting him to knowing you deserve him. Stop replaying conversations. Stop waiting by the phone. Start pouring that energy back into yourself. Because when you become a woman who moves like she's the prize, men respond differently. They step up, they show up, they pursue.
The version of you that overthinks, that questions, that doubts, she's done her time. Now it's your turn to rise, to attract, not chase, to receive, not beg, to be seen, not perform. Because the real power doesn't come from changing who you are to be loved. It comes from becoming so rooted in your value that the only love you accept is the kind that rises to meet you. And that's what 95.7% of men will chase without even knowing why.